I'm James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC Atlantic City, where I take a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. And the thumbnail always gives it away, but the biggest winner on this card, in my opinion, the biggest stock riser, has to be Manon Fa, who gets it done in the main event over Erin Blanchfield by decision and put on a striking clinic. This fight there was no question that Manon Fa won this fight. Striking was on point. You saw Erin Blanchfield's face after the matchup, took a bit of a beating there, and the significant strikes, the headshots especially, favoring Manon Fa in this matchup. But we got to talk about the implications here, because the winner of this fight undoubtedly going to be fighting the winner of the soon-to-be set, you'd hope, flyweight title fight between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. But Fa, in my opinion, secured her shot. I don't think there's any debate there. I know the narrative going in was, Erin Blanchfield, the younger fighter, going to win this fight. And look, I picked Blanchfield in this one, so I'm not totally innocent as far as a pick goes. But Manon Fa coming through. She has yet to lose a fight in the UFC. This is well-deserved from her, and what a way to show up in Erin Blanchfield's backyard and take her out by decision. So Manon Fa, for sure, the biggest stock riser on this card, because she's going to get a title shot out of it. I mean, I don't really know what other options they could do. I suppose they could do something like maybe like a Macy Barber against Fa if they want to keep, Fa active, because we don't know when that Valentina and Grasso fight's going to happen, so to speak. Like I said, it's not booked yet. You would imagine it's going to be at the Sphere in September, but nothing set in stone yet. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I think Manon Fa has to be the biggest winner of this card. She was the main event. She came through in flying colors. We'll talk about Blanchfield a little bit later here on the stock report. Second biggest stock riser, and I don't usually like going in order like this, but it kind of worked out this way. Joaquin Buckley, what a win over Vicente Luque. This was one, again, that my picks are not great on this card, by the way, just throwing it out there, but Joaquin Buckley coming through and taking out Luque, and just being the second fighter to finish Vicente Luque, extremely impressive. Jeff Neal, the only other one in the UFC to do that. So Buckley, again, slight underdog, not much there, minus 105, but I mean, let's look at the optics of this. It was supposed to be Sean Brady and Vicente Luque. Buckley steps in on a decent amount of short notice, not like too bad, but this is the biggest win of Joaquin Buckley's career, and quietly has amassed a bit of a win streak here, especially in a newer weight class for him. If you remember that highlight reel win he got over Impa was at 185. So now he's got 3 wins in a row. Didn't have a name to call out. I figured he would have called out Ian Gary, just because there was some back and forth there with the whole Jeff Neal thing on social media. But kind of looking at the rankings right now, Neil Magny kind of popped out to me. I think that would be a fun fight. I don't know if Neil wants to hop back in there anytime soon, but I think that would be an interesting matchup at welterweight. Because if you look at it there, Luque's number 11. I guess Magny's behind him. The other option you could do if you wanted to is Jeff Neal. I'm not sure if he's ready to get back in there. You could also do Brady as well, who's supposed to fight Luque too. So we'll see which way they want to go. But that was a huge win there for Joaquin Buckley, who, again, has looked really good at welterweight, and that power and everything that he's sort of put together. Granted, I will say Luque kind of falling back on that takedown didn't really work out in his favor here. Buckley extremely powerful. His power is going to be an interesting wrinkle in the welterweight division going forward. But big win there for Joaquin Buckley. He's got to be the other big stock riser on this card. And then the other stock riser we got to talk about, huge win. I couldn't believe it was his first knockout win in the UFC, but that's Nate Landwehr. What a win that was. He, again, big underdog in this spot coming in. I think he was like plus 155. Not too big, but still. And at 35 years old, getting it done. Early on in this fight, it looked like Emmers was actually getting the better of him, but Landwehr coming back, getting the finish there. I'm trying to remember the last time Emmers was finished like that, like by knockout. It's been a while. Yeah, Pat Sabatini, I guess, knocked him out a couple of years back, but big win there for Nate the Train. Hadn't fought since the loss to Dan Ige in Vancouver last June. Obviously became a dad, so needed some time off for that. But coming back in a big way. Jamal Emmers, solid opponent overall. You look at the record there, and I always remind people, Jamal Emmers, one of the few fighters who has a win over Corey Sandhagen. Granted, it was years ago, but still, that looks good on the resume. So big win there for Nate the Train. Again, at 35, I don't really know where he's going to go from here, but this certainly helps, and also great, I'm sure, for him to win on a big card like this and get a bonus as well as a performance of the night for Nate Landwehr. So going to be nice bringing that home as he's become a relatively new dad on that. So those are the 3 biggest stock risers. We always do the honorable mentions. I got to throw a few out here. There was definitely some that we got to take note of. First and foremost, Chris Weidman. I know the fight ended kind of weirdly with the eye pokes and everything, but even prior to that, Chris Weidman looked great. I mean, he looked a lot better than he did in the last couple of years. Now, I'm not implying that Weidman's going to go on any kind of crazy title run or anything like that, but he was a huge underdog in this spot and came through and got it done. I thought the striking looked good tonight. And I also, I'll say it's a combination of things. I think Weidman looked better than we've seen him in the last little bit. Obviously, the eye pokes were a bit weird in the fight, but I also thought Bruno Silva kind of threw this away as well. Like, what an opportunity here. Fighting Chris Weidman, who's coming off that disappointing loss to Brad Tavares, and he can't get it done now. That's another disappointing outing there for Silva. Again, I know the eye pokes did play a bit of a factor here, but I thought Silva didn't look so good, and Weidman looked great. So, got to mention the All-American Chris Weidman, very, very big win for him, getting on the win track. How about Kyle Nelson? I'm done counting out Kyle Nelson. I keep doing it over and over again, and he keeps proving me wrong. Kyle Nelson finishing Bill Algeo. I don't think Algeo's been finished in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. In fact, I don't know if he's ever been finished, period. Well, Shane Burgos way back in 2014, but that was a submission loss. I think, yeah, that was the first knockout loss for Bill Algeo in his career. And I know, again, some people will say maybe that stoppage was a bit early. Would have liked that to go on a little bit longer, but Nelson was throwing some serious bombs. Dad Nelson is certainly a thing. I know he had a newborn. Looked great in this fight, and good for Kyle. I followed Kyle's career for a long time. I wasn't sure how long his UFC run would go, and he's definitely proved me wrong, and obviously the UFC feels that way as well. They got him a new contract after, I think it was a couple fights ago. So big win there for Kyle Nelson, finishing Bill Algeo. He has to be in our stock rivals as well. And then the last one we'll mention, and I know there's some other winners on this card that we could talk to. Roba taking out Lupig Godz. Lupig Godz was not only a favorite going into this fight, but look at the win streak coming in, 4 in a row, and Roba spoils the party, takes away that ranking, or the higher ranking there from Lupig Godz. And there's no excuses. Godz had a full camp. Roba went out there and basically, took care of business. I thought she definitely won that fight 2-1. So big win there for Verna, taking out Lupig Godz. She gets another honorable mention on this card. All right, we got to talk about the biggest stock droppers on this card, the fighters who lost the most stock. And we have to start with Erin Blanchfield. I don't like using the same fighter from the same fight as far as the biggest winner and biggest loser, but really there's no one else that you can sort of pinpoint on this card whose stock dropped the most, just from the optics, okay? What are the optics here? The optics are, everyone wanted Erin Blanchfield to get this title shot, right? Some people felt like she had earned it after the win over Andrade or the win over Talia Santos. Well, she fights Fior, doesn't end up happening. Not to mention Erin had a full camp. Not to mention this is in Atlantic City, her home backyard. Listen, I know there's going to be morons on social media saying, oh, Blanchfield's fraud checked and all this other dumb stuff. Like, that's ridiculous. She's 24 years old. She hung in there, but I think Fior clearly won the fight. Like, there was no debate there. I thought she looked good sort of later in the fight. She got off pretty slow, but overall, yeah, I mean, just in terms of what the expectations were, which was that Blanchfield is going to win this fight and get a title shot, her stock has gone down a bit. Now, look, she can get back up there for sure. Again, she's young enough where you lose a fight like this, you make the adjustments. We've seen it time and time again with fighters where they lose a key fight young in their career and they end up, making some adjustments and going on a bit of a run there. So I think that'll be the case for Blanchfield. I'm not going to sit here and, talk about her, losing a fight like this and put too much emphasis on it, but she was definitely the biggest stock dropper on this card, in my opinion, in terms of the expectations going in. She was headlining the card, and like I said, getting to fight in her own backyard, no real excuses there. And then the other big stock dropper on this card, we're going to jump down the card a little bit. It has to be Lupig Godz, someone I just mentioned, because again, this was sort of tailor-made for Lupig to win, right? She had the full camp. She's, she had a nice win streak. Like, I don't think anyone can sit here and say this was too much of a step up. She was heavily favored and just couldn't get it going. And, credit to Roba, who early on was really putting the pressure on Lupig Godz. Yeah, this was a missed opportunity for Lupig Godz, in my opinion. And, she's not really that young either, right? She's 30 years old. We'll see if she can make the adjustments and go on some type of run, but there's a theme here in her career where, I mean, I know it's early, but you see her when she gets like a decent step up, it doesn't seem to go too well. Angela Hill was a good example. I think Hill was short notice, so I'll maybe cut her some slack there, but you hope this isn't something that continues in her career. Like, I'm sure they'll give her, someone in the rankings next that's a little bit lower and she'll probably win, but you got to get over the hump in fights like this. So Lupig Godz, missed opportunity there. And then the other one has to be Vicente Luque, again, born in New Jersey. I think people forget that. Luque was actually born in the U.S., but obviously grew up in Brazil. You can see it right there, Westwood, New Jersey. And I thought this was a winnable fight for him. I thought Luque was a little bit more well-rounded. He made that mistake, like I said, in the second that ended up costing him. But I think outside of that, Buckley was going to win this fight. He was landing the better shots. This is another stoppage loss here for Luque. He obviously was knocked out by Jeff Neal 2 fights ago. It's tough. He's, you think Luque is older than he is. He's only 32, but the amount of damage he's taken over the last couple fights, that's not good. So we'll see where he goes from here. But, the days of Luque being back because we thought that was the case maybe in the RDA fight, I think is gone. I don't think he's a contender, and I think he's got to show something here to show that he belongs in the rankings, because if you lose like this over and over again, you're going to get booted from the rankings. Great guy too, like it's just tough to see him lose a fight like this. Luque is one of the nicest guys in the sport, but yeah, again, his stock dropping big time, losing that fight to Joaquin Buckley. And they'll do a couple honorable mentions, or just one honorable mention for me was Bill Algeo. Again, he was a big favorite going into this fight. I want to say he was like minus, not too big, but yeah, minus 245. Okay, yeah, he was almost 3-1, and he can't get it done. And he's not that much older than Kyle. You figured, durability wise, he would be able to get it done, but he doesn't get it done. He's been extremely inconsistent over the last couple fights, so he loses that fight. Beat Alex Hernandez, beat TJ Brown, who's not in the UFC, lost to Feely. So same sort of thing what I was talking about with Lupig Godz. It's like when he gets that step up, it tends not to go so well. So mixed results there for Algeo. Doesn't get it done, and credit to Kyle Nelson for getting the victory. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you think are the biggest stock risers and biggest stock droppers on this card? I would love to hear from you. I'm always open to debate. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't. Maybe you agree with me. It doesn't matter, but we can have a fun discussion about this in the comments. Weird card last night. Maybe not the best one we've seen in recent memory, but we all know what's coming up here soon, and that's UFC 300. So the anticipation for that is going to be exciting. I'm going to be at UFC 300, so I can't wait to watch that one live. I'm rambling, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Always love to hear from you guys. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.